Hello, my sweet friends. Your host Shurma here. I'm so glad you chose to join me here today. A very warm welcome to all of you. Let's paint some vintage roses in one stroke style. Yes, and we are going to have a lot of fun doing so. The materials which we would be using today are all listed over here. So let's get started with chapter number 1, planning the backdrop for the floral painting. For starters, I have 3 elements with me. The first one is a white side folding card base, and the size being 4 inches by 5.7 inches. The second element is a black cardstock cut to size, and the third one is a white watercolor paper size 3.9 inches by 5.3 inches, and the black cardstock just frames around the white watercolor paper. In the next step, I go ahead and create a very interesting background on the white watercolor paper with the help of some liquid watercolors like light brown and aqua blue, and I've also used a stencil to create a 4 frame around the white oval. Now, if you would like to know how a similar background can be created, then please click on the I button which appears on the right hand side of this particular screen, and you will be taken to one such video. So once we are done with planning the background for the floral painting, we move on to chapter number 2, that is painting the vintage rose in one stroke style. In the next step, I went ahead and printed a pretty sentiment on the white oval, and I'm going to create the florals around that sentiment. Here comes the palette: portrait pink, salmon pink, yellow, white acrylic and deep magenta acrylic color. I have a flat brush number 6 in hand, and I go ahead and load it with portrait pink, a bit of salmon and white acrylic. I might also go ahead and add a bit of yellow to the mix, and that creates a very pretty color, and you will see in a bit. Next, I go ahead and pick up a black scratch paper and lay it over the sentiment in order to protect it. Then I go ahead and pick up a flat brush number 4, and I've loaded it with salmon pink and then deep magenta, and I've created a very loose form of the rose. Next, I pick up my flat brush number 6, and it is loaded with white acrylic, salmon pink, yellow, as well as a bit of portrait pink. So there are 4 colors on the brush, and this is called multi-loading of the brush as far as one stroke style of painting is concerned. So here I begin with the first layer of petals of the central vintage rose. So this is the vintage rose in the making, in one stroke style of painting. Now, roses, as we know, are symbols of love, beauty and virtue in poetry, music, art and literature. But then what is a vintage rose, you might ask? A muted, more sophisticated alternative to the traditional shades of rose is called a vintage rose. The color of the vintage rose seems to be medium light shade of pink red. Now, vintage roses are referred to roses that were in existence before the year 1867. Modern, newer varieties are mostly hybrids. I would like to share with you a lovely poem called The Rose, written by Valerie Craig Mosen. In fact, I happened to chance upon it while scrolling the net, and it really touched my soul. So here it is, and I quote, "I saw the rose my garden fair adorn. I stooped to pick the fragrant bloom. But then I could not pick the rose without the thorn, for both of them grew on a single stem. How very much like life that rose I found, as I have grown much older through the years, that through our life on earth with joys abound, we cannot take the joys without the tears." So beautiful, isn't it? Well, here I'm still working on the central vintage rose, and here I have picked up my liner brush and I'm trying to reinforce the highlighted areas with white acrylic. I have also gone ahead and added a bit of deep magenta at certain spots, so those spots appear very dark. So creating a lot of values, different values I mean to say, of light and dark brings about interest in just about any kind of painting, especially florals. Here I have added a bit of yellow to the belly of the rose to make it more rounded. Then I am also working on the side petals, making them look more prominent. You might be thinking I keep fussing over the petals, moving from one to the other. And yes, I keep doing that until I'm satisfied. And also, I need to see the proportion of the petals with respect to the whole image, and that is quite an effort. Once happy with the vintage rose, I move on to chapter number 3, that is painting the leaves. And this happens to be the most fun part because this is where the floral will come to life. So here is the palette. I have sap green, olive green, turquoise green, bamboo green, yellow acrylic, and I've also added salmon pink and a bit of white acrylic on the palette. Here I have a scope of various combinations, so I'm picking up my flat brush number 6 and I've loaded it with sap green, yellow and white for the time being, and I blend the colors very well, and that will help me to achieve beautiful results. So here I have used 3 colors on the brush, so that is triple loading of the brush in one stroke style of painting. Now I'm also using 2 more brushes here. One is a liner brush and the other one is a flat brush number 4. So at present I have my liner brush in hand and I have sap green and a bit of olive green on it, and I'm just painting around the edges of the petals of the central vintage rose. Next I go ahead and pick up some turquoise green on my brush and I try to mix it with the sap green olive green combo. I'm using my finger to play with the colors. This helps to bring about some different kind of textures because of the finger marks. At this point I have added a bit of yellow to the green and I'm trying to shape the color into some kind of leaves which can hardly be seen. Let's call them background leaves. Here I have brought in some turquoise green and I am doing the same again, shaping it into some kind of very pale leaves around the vintage rose. I'm adding a bit of turquoise to the left as well. This play of colors helps to set the stage for the final and very visible one-stroke style of leaves. Here I am creating some stems around the vintage rose. With a liner brush and sap green color. Next, I go ahead and pick up my flat brush number 6 and I have loaded it with sap green, olive green, yellow as well as white acrylic. And these are the one-stroke style of fabulous leaves in the making. So friends, what do you think of the painting? Are you having fun watching the one-stroke style of floral and the leaves come to life? Would you like to learn the one-stroke style of floral painting? It is a beautiful technique and just the right one for creating extraordinary florals. But yes, it needs a lot of practice and dedication. So in that case, I would definitely encourage you to visit my past videos and I would be very happy to drop some of the links in the description box below, and I'm sure you will go through them and be inspired to learn it yourself. By the way, the smaller leaves are with the flat brush number 4. Once happy with the leaves, I move on to the next chapter, that is creating the rosebuds. For this, I go back to my flat brush number 6 and I have loaded it with salmon pink and white to create little buds. Next, I go ahead and pick up my liner brush and I have sap green and a bit of olive green on it. And I'm creating the stems around the buds and the little leaves. I will also go ahead and add some bamboo to the mix to help them look more realistic. So friends, if you have any queries regarding one-stroke style of painting, or you have suggestions regarding today's project or any of my previous projects as well, do let me know in the comment box below and I would be extremely pleased to read all your comments and come back with my answers. So here you see I'm adding some bamboo green to the little leaves around the buds with a liner brush. And I'm trying to be careful not to spoil the sentiment. For that, I have to be nimble-fingered. Here, I'm trying to create some vines and little stems around the buds, sticking out from underneath them. And I'm adding little thorns with the help of a liner brush. And there you go, the panel seems ready. But not quite. So I go ahead and pick up my liner brush with acrylic yellow on it and add the flower centers. Alright, so in the next step, we are going to assemble all the elements and create the note card. So I have the 3 elements. I'll go over them once again. I have a black cardstock, a white card base and the painted panel. I put them all together and this is what I have. So friends, that's a wrap on today's project. Hope you enjoyed watching me paint the vintage roses in one-stroke style. Do follow me on my social media handles and it would be a great pleasure to be in touch with you. Thank you for your wonderful support, for the comments you leave me and for subscribing to my channel, and by doing so you help my tutorials to reach a wider audience and I'm eternally grateful to you for that. And yes, thanks for watching till the end. We'll be back very soon, dear friends, with more tutorials. Till then, take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.